Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us on Facebook Live today. We have some questions that we've got sent in that are pretty good, and they're basic if you're a lawyer, but for folks that don't do this every day, hopefully we'll get you some good information. The first question sent in by Tammy was, how soon must I bring my claim? And that question has some twists, but the really simple answer is you have 1 year from the date of an auto accident or truck crash or anything like that, any kind of what they call torts, to file a lawsuit. Now, that doesn't mean that you want to wait that long, but if you don't file a lawsuit within a year from the date of a crash, then your lawsuit is forever barred, even if you're hurt really bad. Doesn't matter. You have to file it within that 1 year. It's called the statute of limitations. There are plenty of reasons to bring a claim the day after, the week after something happens. You're going to be going up against an insurance company, and they have all the money and resources available to them that they want. So immediately after a crash, they're going to hire experts. If it's a big crash, they're going to hire people and their whole point from the get-go is to limit the amount of money that you collect. So the sooner you can get started with your claim, the better, because you want whoever you hire to do the same, to hire experts, to preserve the scene, to make sure that information, witnesses don't get lost or forget what happened. So it's really important to bring the claim immediately. Medical malpractice, we get a lot of 3,200 medical malpractice calls a year. And that's a little bit of a different statute, and you definitely want to file that one sooner rather than later. You still have a year to file the claim, but there's also something called the discovery rule. Sometimes when you go through a surgery or medical malpractice happens to you, you don't know it right away. There are standard complications that can happen depending on the type of surgery you're having. So for medical malpractice, there's something called the discovery rule. And essentially what that means is the 1 year statute of limitations to file a suit can be pushed out a little bit if you didn't discover it, or you shouldn't have discovered it. So if 4 months after surgery you realize that they butchered your knee operation because another doctor told you so, then your statute can be extended a little bit. Also, in car wreck cases, if the defendant was drunk or on drugs and gets criminally prosecuted, there's a new law in Tennessee where you actually have an additional year. So you have 2 years to file that claim. Let's see. Robert asked, when should I go see a doctor? A lot of people that get in car wrecks, unless you have a traumatic injury right off the bat, there's something called delayed onset, which means you may start to get sore a few days later. Long story short, you need to get medical attention if you're in a serious car wreck right away. Clearly, if you have broken bones, you're going to travel by an ambulance to a hospital. But if you feel just really sore, you want to go within the first couple of days for a lot of reasons. Most insurance companies, and I'm talking health insurance companies, have a standard process of care that you have to go through, and it's kind of like going through hoops. So initially, if you go to the ER, they're going to do x-rays, and x-rays don't show soft tissue injuries. So if you have a disc issue in your back or neck, for example, an x-ray is not going to tell a doctor that there's a problem there. X-rays show bones and whether or not they're broken. But that's what health insurance require before an MRI is done, unless you have certain complaints when you present to a hospital. So after you get released from the emergency room, then your next step is to go to your primary care physician or back to the ER. And at that point, if you have health insurance, they would allow the physician to either prescribe you physical therapy if it's a neck and back injury, or to get an MRI. And an MRI actually shows the soft tissues in our body, and if you do have, say, a bulging disc in your neck or back from a crash, then they can see that on an MRI. So the sooner you can get that process started, the better. It stinks to know that you're in a standard of care that a health insurance company mandates to these physicians. Even if they wanted to do an MRI right off the bat, frequently they can't. They wouldn't get paid for it, and the health insurance doesn't let them do it without certain conditions being met. So the sooner the better. Another reason is, like I talked about with how soon must I bring my claim? The insurance company is mounting a defense from the moment that your auto accident happens. And what I mean by that is there is a playbook that a defense lawyer has, and he looks to see what your car wreck situation is and fits the playbook to that. And if you delay your treatment, then there's a playbook for gap in treatments. And essentially what they will say to a jury is, how hurt was Mrs. Smith if she didn't go to the ER until 5 days after the wreck and didn't start complaining of pain and get any more treatment until 6 months after the wreck? Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, do you really believe that she's hurt that bad if she didn't care enough to go take care of herself? So you don't want to fall into that trap. Don't let the defense lawyer use that as a playbook in your case. You want to get the treatment, follow your doctor's orders. That's another really big thing. You have a duty, even though you're not at fault and you're the victim, you have a duty under the law to what's called mitigate your damages. And that means take care of yourself, take the appropriate action, get the appropriate health care that you need, and in a timely manner so that you can collect for it, because you deserve it. Another question, should I accept a check from the at-fault driver or his or her insurance company? Why or why not? That question really has two parts. They're separate parts of an insurance policy that deal with separate things. One part of the person that hits you's insurance policy deals with your property damage, meaning getting your car fixed, replaced, etc. And to be quite frank, there's not a whole lot any lawyer like me can do when it comes to property damage. The law is pretty clear that there's a website out there called the NADA book value. It's kind of, you can buy a car from it, but if you wanted to know what your car is worth, if you go to NADA, you put in the mileage, the make, the year, all that good stuff, and it will come out with a value based upon what kind of condition your car's in. Well, the insurance companies do the exact same thing. And really the only way to get them off the figure that the NADA gives is to show receipts, for example, if you had just gotten new tires or there had been some sort of upgrades to your car or motorcycle or truck. Then they may take that into consideration. But as far as a lawyer helping with property damage, we can certainly, create a bridge between you and that adjuster, but you're better off taking care of that, and because it can happen quickly. Now, as far as your injury claim, you should never accept a check directly from them without having a lawyer at least look at the check and the release. It is not uncommon for insurance companies, for example, to send a property damage check and say this is a full and final settlement of your entire claim. And people have signed those and unfortunately have gotten stuck with not being able to pursue their bodily injury claim because they signed a check or cashed a check that in the memo line said this is a full and final settlement. So definitely look at the release, have an attorney look at the release before you sign or take a check from an insurance company ever. Literally, insurance companies have no pulse, they have no heartbeat. They have great commercials, but their whole interest is limiting what they pay out and maximizing what they collect. So even if you've had an insurance company for 25 years and you're really good friends with your insurance agent, I am. My guy, Dwan Buford, I love him. It doesn't matter. They have a singular mission, and that is to limit what they pay out. So you need to protect yourself, get a lawyer that knows what they're doing, and make sure they look at and approve of everything before you sign, because it really has happened where people have gotten screwed. Randy sent in a question. I don't have car insurance, but I was injured in the accident. Should I go to the doctor anyway? 1 in 7 drivers, unfortunately, in Tennessee do not have car insurance, which is a staggering number. But yes, is the short answer to this question is absolutely. The odds are that the person that hits you does have insurance, and if you're hurt, you need to get to the doctor anyway. Now, if you don't have health insurance, hospitals will still treat you in an emergency situation. Your follow-up care can be tricky, but if the person that hits you has adequate insurance, there are health insurance companies out there that specialize in helping people that have been in car crashes that don't have health insurance. So your lawyer can steer you to doctors that will take that type of health insurance, and you can get the care that you need. We have time for one more question, which is, how do I get a copy of my crash report? Depending on where you live, in Nashville, for example, at the Davidson County Jail, you can go and request a car crash. There are also web-based companies. There's one called buycrash.com, and you'll need to know the name, the date, and the location of where the accident happened, and you can buy it online for $10. Now, if it's a very serious crash and someone is dead or injured in a way that the police may think they later might die, there's a group of police that do a very thorough investigation called a critical incident response team, and generally those take about 30 days, those reports, to come out, so you may have to wait a little longer. I always enjoy doing this. I hope the information that I've given you has been beneficial, and if you could, if you have questions based on this, feel free to email us, call, however you'd like to reach out to us, but I'm happy to help.